The Hay Band Network. Welcome to the Hay Band Network. This is the marching band series, and today we have a visual designer, Jeremy Hunt, joining us from Austin, Texas. Welcome to the Hay Band Network.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
So it's a crazy time this year, trying to get ready for drill, and you've written drill. You had drill client for the summer. That the drum corps activity got changed, so that changed those plans. And then obviously the marching band thing where it's at. I thought it'd be great to pull you in here and kind of pick your brain a little bit on where you're at and some things you've seen, maybe help some directors out in the process of maybe what to look for, start planning for, and kind of where some people are at. So, but first, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background, Jeremy.
My background's a little all over the place. I actually was born in Lafayette, Louisiana, so I started band in fourth grade. And then I moved to upstate New York, where my mom was from, for middle school, high school. Went to a little tiny high school that just happened to have marching band. And the day I moved to that high school, a kid had moved away, so I filled a hole. Which is ironically the first day I saw drum corps too, because they were playing a video. So it's like my first day of band was filling a hole, seeing drum corps, and it changed my life. A couple years later after that, I marched the Rochester Patriots. I think our tour fees were $100. Then I marched 4 years of Bluecoats while I was going to Western Kentucky. And then after that, I've taught numerous places. I taught Crown for a few years on visual staff, Glassman for a few years, then was caption head at Madison for 4. And then I've started writing at the Colts in '07, and I've been writing ever since. I did initially mostly schools in the Southeast. I did a lot of stuff in Kentucky initially. I used to do a high school called Fred J. Page in Tennessee. That was kind of my most successful program as a designer. They were a band of, 75. Then lived in Florida for a while, did a school called Eastlake that was really successful. Indoor drumline high school called Mariner that I taught by myself, which is crazy since I'm not a drummer in any way. And then one day, Bruce Dinkins, who used to be at Bowie, called, and I couldn't pick up the phone fast enough because I had heard through Steve Davis. He had said, "Hey, I heard one of the best bands I've ever heard." And he said James Bowie. And when Bruce called me, I immediately picked up that phone and moved here. And this is now over 11 years, and I love it. Changed my life. I have a great experience here. I get to primarily write now. Like for years, I used to do it all. At one point, I was like an assistant band director, then ran the indoor drumline and wrote the drill and painted everything. Like I did it all. And now I've been able to focus more and more and more. And I think in the last 5-6 years, but actually my drill has gotten better because I've been able to focus more on that. So that's the short version of that story.
And you've written for some great bands that travel to that go to Grand Nationals. Probably I think it's almost annually. It seems like now at this point, and drill designer for Phantom Regiment for this summer for that. So some great programs for those that aren't familiar. Who Jeremy, you should be, but if not, he's definitely somebody who's written some products that you've watched and worth knowing about. So this year's a little bit different. So in your drill design process, has anything changed of where you're at? Right around the 1st of June for your fall clients?
Nothing's particularly changed right now. I have had a conversation with a lot of my band directors about potential outcomes and potential situations, because band directors are very good at like looking at all that and knowing all those logistics and having to make some decisions. So we've talked some things about plan Bs. We've talked about some things of, are the shows going to end up being shorter? And a number of states have done that. They've already said, oh, we're going to shorten the shows down. So we've had some of those conversations and what that looks like. The biggest thing I've kind of talked with band directors, all right, the information I've gotten back from band directors is not wanting to lose ground with the development of what they've done. And the closest placeholder I can give an example of is doing winter and then taking a winter off and then coming back. It's basically like starting over when you do that with an ensemble, because you'll even see world ensembles do that and they go all the way back to A. So I think band directors want really hard for there to be something so they can keep making sure, they're developing the program. They don't want to be stuck in a block playing Hey Baby, and the battery playing Boom Chick, which I talk to all my band directors about. They're like, we don't want that. We want to make sure we can keep developing. So we've been trying to plan for potentially that. And Besides that, things are coming in probably later than normal because of the uncertainty of what potentially happens. But at some point, I mean, you know this as a band director and writing drill, at some point, if you want the drill to get there, you have to decide what it's going to be. So I think there's going to be various situations, kind of like the states. It's going to be various states are going to do different things. I think it's going to be various situations of maybe a band only does 2 songs. They don't do 3 songs. Maybe a band does. I have one client, we're doing a completely different show. We're going to do sort of like a patriotic kind of show, something that can tap the community a little bit more directly in a year of uncertainty. So some of those things. So each client's going to be a little different.
But you're full speed ahead, writing drill, putting dots down as we speak.
I'm full speed ahead. I'm looking at my board over here. I have 2 openers done. I'll have a 3rd one done tomorrow. And then moving on to the next thing. Like I have to keep moving because at some point I just start working every single day. Like I just have to keep moving along. I also write really slow. Some people write fast. I write slow. So yeah, I'm still trucking along, bugging band directors for numbers, you know.
And what are some things that band directors that, since this is geared towards that, they may want to know from a drill designer on some things they can start doing now in preparation for the fall, besides the normal get the numbers and the information for the layout of the show, but some other things maybe we may have to deal with that are different because of spacing things, or maybe some things you've addressed slightly differently that a director can use?
I think some things that directors could probably discuss and look at, especially in this kind of uncertain time of these next 2 months, is maybe the way they can get to doing some training activities is deal with some of the kind of the parameters we're talking about, 6 feet, 10 feet, it's different everywhere. Like maybe you do basics at those types of things, which I think is a great device to teach the kids to be individual. Because, you know, like there's 2 great things you can do with basics. You spread them out to see who's the real problems, and then you put them close to see if they trust each other. So I think people fall into a rut and kind of do always the same basics. They always go at 4s, or they always go on yard lines. I think you could do kind of bigger spacings to adhere to the guidelines, but then take advantage of training for different devices and developing the kids. So maybe 8-step blocks, you know, really spread them out. It'll be a challenge for the kids and a challenge for the directors, but I think it'll cause people to maybe think about it a little bit different, and maybe get the kids confidence, but be able to talk to them. I think another big challenge, it's funny as I start to say this, and I'm a big advocate for this here, is when I moved here, everybody was doing a long ranger in the back on the 50, like just a long ranger. And those things speak like direct. And as soon as I got here, I realized like 2/3 of the field couldn't hear the band director. And I said, hey, do we have those old speakers? Can we put those up front? So like when you're speaking at the students. So they see you speaking and they hear it coming out instead of being this like disembodied voice in the back. So maybe that will allow some of the band directors to kind of think out of their box. Because sometimes you fall into the rut of, oh, this is what the head director did before me, I'm going to do that. But that might not always work for A, the space you rehearse in, and B, the situation. I think this is a good test of like, hey, maybe we should do something different because we'll get a better result faster.
And you've kind of been down that in some of these programs where you've looked at things and you kind of started or changed some things. Is that right? Like how you look at things and evaluate things related to the visual program and stuff, or have you done that?
Yeah, like a lot. Process is a huge thing for me. Probably because when I was learning how to play an instrument, I probably didn't get great process until I got to drum corps, and they're like, you're going to do all these Remingtons. And I was like, I don't know any of this. But when I got to Bowie, they handed me the mic and they're like, you're running rehearsal now. And I was like, okay. And I knew the kids were unbelievable. So I put in check and adjust. Like I put in all this process stuff. I simplified all this horns up, horns down stuff, which I've always done. And it's something I took from the Emmerts, Dwight Emmert, Jay Emmert, who used to be the captain heads at Regiment, is I march at Trailwood High School. And actually now the drum corps all do it a ton. And I initially did it with Bowie, and we do it with Leander. And a lot of it is a 14-year-old, baritone kid can't do this. You know, you can't ask that kid to do that for 3 hours. So we march a trail. It's something that I definitely instituted, and I saw it kind of spread through Texas really fast. Like in the next 4 years, suddenly like all these bands were marching a trail, because I think they realized like, oh, that's one less thing I have to worry about being upset with that. You know, maybe there's a flute girl that wants to play baritone and she's not quite ready for what that physical demand is, or, you know, the last baritone to make a primary spot's not quite strong enough. Having a kid stand with his arms at his side is natural and normal, and it's one less thing you have to teach. You can get their feet moving sooner. They'll march in time better, because all they have to do is bring their horn to their face, play. When they're done playing, they put their horn back down. They're not sitting like this for 3 hours. And similar, when we went to Leander, when I went to Leander, I remember a very first rehearsal, and I sat down with Robert and I said, well, I have these very distinct devices I like to use so we can move faster, but all the devices are very simple. And we went through all this rehearsal etiquette when they were auditioning drum majors. And I said, that command has 4 words. It can be 2 words. You know, it was something like those 2 extra words, you say it all season long, it's like 45 minutes of wasted time. So are there little things like that that we can get rid of? Because you know as well as this, like as soon as you become the boss and a band director or a caption head, you think, oh, I'm the boss, so I have to speak. And you put the mic to your face and you talk and 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 talk. And at some point the kids just go, they stop listening. But if you can make that stuff precise and clear and very effective, the kids will respond like that and be great like that. But you don't always have to over-explain. It's not like in concert band when you're flipping through a piece and you're explaining why Tchaikovsky made this decision. It's marching band. You need that kid to hit that yard line on 8. What's the simplest way to do it, and figure out what that is in the least amount of words, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and because that's what I've heard. We've kind of crossed paths a little bit, but everything is simplified and make it as easy. And how do you relate that to what a director may be going through? They start, maybe there's not a lot of summer band camp or limited summer band camp, or how that is. Are there things you see how that relates directly to what a director, how that can help a director out?
One of the biggest advices I can give for maybe, like if a band director is watching this and going, okay, what's the thing I can take away from this? The biggest advice I could give you is run basics just like rehearsal, exactly like rehearsal. Face the front, use the met in the back, have the drum major say set, have them say check and adjust, whatever your process is, run it exactly the same. So when you start learning drill, it's exactly the same. Because the trap we fall into is, oh, the tech runs basics, so they go out there with a dock block. So the tech is running basics. Now the band director comes out and he runs a different rehearsal. Run those rehearsals exactly the same. Stand by, check and adjust, whatever your process is, however you stand, all those things, make it the same, because then the kid only has to do one thing. They only have to rehearse one way. But what happens is we have basics one way, we run rehearsal inside differently, we run regular rehearsal differently. Just make them on the same device. It'll be harder on the director initially. The kid will do it like that because that's what they're told to do. That's the biggest advice. And that's exactly how we do it at Leander. We just had a conversation with the assistant was taking over more of the visual responsibilities. And he's a percussionist and he's super gung-ho, Brian Cerna. He's awesome. He's my age. He makes me feel better because they're all way younger than me and him. And I said, why do we face the end zone for basics? And he goes, I don't know, because that's what you do. And I said, just face the front like we do in the show. And I could hear the light bulb on the other end of the phone. He goes, why don't we do that? It's because somebody somewhere along the line was like, everybody get on a yard line and face an end zone. So it's just not necessary. Face the front. It's still the same grid. So that's the biggest advice. Whatever rehearsal style you use, just run the same type of rehearsal.
And that takes a lot of introspection on the director to look at it, but that's great advice. Like fantastic stuff for them to look at.
It's harder for us because we got to chip away those bad habits, you know.
Just ingrained in what we did and what we've seen and how we were trained as young directors.
Yeah.
And you said the kids just whatever they're told, and the directors, or is that the biggest challenge to get them to adjust, or you see pretty quick changes when you've made these adjustments through the years?
I've seen pretty quick. The first year I was here in Texas was 2009, and I would do all the basics at Bowie at that time. All the years I was at Bowie, I did all the basic stuff. On the first day, we did all 4 boxes at 2:08 because I wanted to prove they could do it. Now, it was a morning night block, like it was a split, and we weren't really learning drill till I think day 3. And I just had this goal. I was like, these kids are all really, really smart and very, very capable. The system is in place. I'm going to get them to march really fast on the first day. And they were like, oh, you know, they were like overwhelmed. And it was like, why are you overwhelmed? You literally did it. It's 8 counts 4 times, 4 times. That's all it is. 2:08 is not that fast. And they did it because it was all simple. I wasn't speaking at them. I was like, do exactly this. And they did it, you know, they survived. So I think if you do those types of things, the kids will respond, you know. As soon as you say this is hard, you're done.
For sure. And this is a question that I didn't send to you, so we'll see how this navigates. Relating to riding drill, are you changing anything in how you incorporate or use the color guard, since we know there might be some different limitations or time, rehearsal management stuff, limited time or less time?
I think there's been some definite conversations of equipment choices, because I think what people forget sometimes is the color guard doesn't have instrument drive. They don't show up in 5th grade and somebody goes, let me see your hands and let me see you spin. They show up now and they're 3 years older. So I think there's definitely been some conversations of, is there something that's more character driven? Is there something that it's more swing flag? Do we try to figure out how to do more holds? I think that's anything as a drill writer. As you start to get better, you go, oh, the guard should move less and less and less and less and less and less. When you're a young drill writer, you're like, well, if the trumpets can do this all the time, the guard should be able to do that. I would say the biggest thing that will help is just the equipment choices and being very, very compatible. Don't feel like you have to spin something that maybe you're not ready for, or if you need to do something like rifle, be very deliberate with your choices. Maybe it's just 5. Don't feel like you have to have 8. You know, if you have a guard of 30, maybe you do a 6-person rifle line. But be very, very deliberate. I guess this would be more for the visual designers, band directors, color guard people, just to have, you know, to be able to really think about it, like be very deliberate with those choices. We've had some of those conversations with a lot of my clients of trying to be smart with that stuff. Also some other things, and this sort of relates, is just maybe there's a conversation about no props, you know, because that's, if you have less time, moving a prop gobbles up time. You don't think of that because in a show you just see the prop come out. But who pushes that prop? Who builds that prop? Maybe those type of things, because if you don't use that energy up, you have that then to teach the kid. And then maybe if you don't have that and the guard isn't worried about that, they'll have more time to have, you know, a full ensemble 6-foot flag moment. So be very deliberate with those decisions and don't be afraid to tear it back. You know, as much as anybody, you can have a great drum line and a great band that doesn't play a lot, but they just sound great because they're just fundamentally taught well. You don't have to have all the bells and whistles for the kids still to be great. And I think those are the conversations of when you're tuning in what you think the show is going to be or how you want to train the kids. Maybe, you know, you bring some things down, and maybe some of that is this guard thing is a little less, no, you know, you take the energy of the props all the way down so you can manage the choices. Because potentially if it's September 1 and they say go, now you have to make sure you fulfill what you want the students to do, and you have to make sure you've already kind of prepped for those good choices. Did that make sense?
No, sure. I think of all the years, this is the year, as much as it seems like our activity is just growing and it's more and more, this is the year to like you said, pull back, and it's okay, and it's going to be okay for that, just to give the kids the experience and the opportunity of doing whatever the marching band things become. But to get on a field and march and play at the same time is probably more valuable than having a bunch of props on the field at this point.
And just have a good thought of like, when it's December 1, what is success for you this year? Like, we want to make sure the engine keeps moving. it's very important. The engine's got to keep moving. We got to keep developing kids. The kid is the client. Like I say this all the time to young designers, like the kid is the client. You have to make sure you give them their best. When they get to December and they go off to the holidays, if life is completely back to normal, they've had a great experience. They've had a great experience with their kids and their teachers, but they weren't able to start till September 1, but by the holidays, everything's back to normal. Nobody's going to care. Like, oh, we didn't make finals at that regional. Like, they're gonna, because at this point, when you're trained, like if you're worried about cramming stuff in, maybe that's not what's going to even help for that anyway, so really think about what is going to help your program be successful and get as much as you can out of the kids and keep the engine moving.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that is the right perspective that I think a lot of people I hear talking about that, but it's well put that what do they look back at? What does the year of the fall look like? And it is going to be very different than most years.
And it's going to be different places. So like you can't, like if you have limitations and somebody is more competitively successful than you and they don't have limitations, you can't, oh, well, we couldn't compete with XYZ band. Well, they didn't have the limitations. Like you can't be upset. You can't pin that on yourself. That's not, you don't control that, This is a good year for that lesson,
That's great. Something unrelated to the COVID and what's going to happen in the fall. Is there anything you've done for yourself in the last couple months since things have changed and we've been kind of put in our homes?
I actually started running. I think the 1st of April. I had a video call with a doctor since that's now allowed. And he said, what do you do for exercise? And I said, well, I usually go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week, but I can't do that now. I like going for walks. And he kind of gave me, a glare, kind of like a mini scolding, but he didn't say anything. I was like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to run. He's like, yeah, he goes, he goes, old people walk. He goes, you should be running. So I've been running. I ran 3.5 miles today. I ran 3 yesterday. I ran 2 the day before. I ran 5 last week. And when it hurts, I take a couple days off, but I've definitely done that. I've been watching videos on like proper running technique, which has actually been great because it hurt the first week because I was doing it wrong. Yeah, that's been the big thing is that, and a lot of cooking around the house. My wife, who's I met in drum corps, is like, hey, cook whatever you want. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna wing it, So a lot of cooking, a lot of running.
Great, man. And that's part of this. We've gotten to do things maybe we don't normally do or wouldn't normally do because of the schedule, and we've got to get this done and the routine. Like you're saying, simplify and change. So, last thing, any shout outs you want to give?
Shout outs. I do have a website. I have been very like hush hush on it because I'm not like one to like post stuff everywhere. It's simple. It's jeremyhuntdrill.com. It's actually been up since the 1st of the year, and I just picked up a client from it, but I don't want to, I've never been one to like plaster my stuff everywhere. But if you want to go and check it out, I kind of built it myself. I found this really cool platform. It took me time to figure it out. It's kind of like learning Pyware for the first time, or when they update something and you go, wait, how do I do that? So it took me some time to work that out. So check that out. I basically, to all the people out there working really, really hard. I know Phantom Regiment is working really, really hard to do some summer program stuff to keep the membership engaged. To maybe check some of that stuff out. The Phantom Academy is starting to get released. I know Leander High School is trying to get some source material out for basics, so people have some stuff maybe to send to students to check out, so they can be in their yard. They've sent some cool videos of like, students teaching, +1 in their bedroom, which I think is really cool and funny. Like they're in their backyard. This is +1 and this is -1. So hopefully some of that stuff comes out. I think that's about it. Just in final thoughts, just be smart, everybody. Be smart, be healthy. Think about this year as a link in a bridge, like and you want to make sure you kind of get over to this next process. Like we're having to deal with this little bump. It can be a very, very healthy experience and a very, very smart experience. If there's ever a year to not get caught up on this recap or this thing or getting finals, like this is the year for that, because the health of the program is the most important thing, and that's the health of the kids, and what you're going to give them for years and years and years to come is maybe something super special in this year. And I know it's something we really work really hard on at Leander as much as possible. I know it probably doesn't seem that way, but we just go, we're going to do really, really fun shows. We want the kids to buy in. I think we might have the largest band in Leander, and we're now 5A. I think we have 350 in the band, because it's like we want the kids to want to love to be there and be there all the time. And no matter what happens, you know, the most important thing is working hard and being together and just enjoying it and not getting caught up in, you know, some one person does 1/10 here, 2/10. Like, don't get caught up in that. Like, this is the year of make your program run as healthy as you think it needs to run. And it's going to be very, very different at different times. So reach out to people, reach out to mentors. I called Mark Waymeyer, Dr. Mark Waymeyer, about 5 weeks ago, had a 2-hour conversation with him. It was funny because, you know, trying to do Zoom stuff. And I called Dwight Emmert and had a long conversation with him. It's like, what do these things look like? And they were all like potentially different things. And don't be afraid to do plan B, to plan C. Don't be afraid to go, the show's now shorter, we're going to clip the closer. Like, don't be afraid, because in the end, give the kids something that they can be successful at.
Man, that's great. Very great advice. So, Jeremy Hunt, thanks for joining us on the Hey Band Network today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and so anybody else watching this video, go ahead and check out the Hey Band Network YouTube channel, and you can see this video and other videos in our remote teaching, leadership, and marching band series. Thank you all very much.
See you guys.
All right.